Attorney Richard Carey will be the instructor for DREA's Getting Ahead workshop on buying tax deeds and tax certificates. This workshop will focus on research prior to bidding and will teach investors many tricks of the trade. Richard, why should investors now learn about tax deeds at auction?
Tax deeds at an auction are another opportunity for an investor to, number one, get the property back, and number two, put their money in a safer place for a return. Right now, banks are giving you 0.8% on your interest rate of return. You might as well invest in a tax certificate where you're almost guaranteed a minimum of 5% of return.
Well, is it true that in a tax deed auction, which is the next step, right? Is it true that in a tax deed auction that all liens are wiped out?
That is mostly true. Almost all liens are wiped out besides the IRS. And the IRS is the unique category of liens. They have a 120-day right of redemption.
Well, what about super liens, so-called super liens that we hear about that the cities have, like code violations and things like that? Are those wiped out?
They're essentially wiped out. However, the ticker does start running on them as soon as you acquire your tax deed. So if there was a $100,000 code enforcement lien, it gets reset back down to zero, but it's going to start running right back up as soon as you take title.
Okay. If an investor identifies a property to bid on at the auction, should he or she order a title search, or can they find enough information in the public record to make a discernment whether they should bid or not?
Well, I would always recommend, if you have the time, to order a title search. However, preliminary research just through the public auctions and public records are going to give you a good enough amount of information to make that determination fact of whether or not you should go forward and bid on this property.
So in our workshop, will we be going over some of those things in the practicum portion?
We will definitely be going over how to actually research the property, finding out if there's any outstanding liens, any code enforcement violations, who you need to contact to make sure that you can make an educated decision on whether or not you should purchase the tax deed.
Now, I know some of your clients, and you shared this with me, and this is what I find most interesting, some of your clients actually pinpoint properties to buy before they buy the actual property, before it goes to tax deed auction. Are all properties at the tax deed auction, is that a good strategy for all of them or just some of them?
It's really only for some properties. There's a couple factors. Number one, the biggest factor is whether or not there's actually a mortgage on the property. With Florida, we have a lot of second and third homes that people buy, and so they fall through an estate planning purchase or a probate, where they're not encumbered by mortgages. So those are great properties for you to target to acquire prior to auction.
Okay, so you're going to show us how to go through that and help make those determinations.
That's correct.
Okay, you also will talk to us about tax certificates, and that's where a lot of people get confused at what a tax certificate is versus a tax deed. And both are investments for different reasons, right?
That's correct. If you're an investor, real estate investor who's actually looking to acquire the property, then a tax deed is what you want to go, because that's what's actually going to give you the title to the property. If you're an investor who's looking to kind of park his money and get a nice rate of return on the interest, then tax certificates are where you want to be targeted.
Okay. So in the workshop, we're going to talk about tax certificates and the advantages, right? And we're going to talk about strategies for tax deeds, right? You're going to tell us the do's and the don'ts.
That's correct. We're going to cover tax certificates, tax deeds, and we're also going to look at tax certificates in other states, because some states, such as Texas and Iowa, have great rates of return, 24%.
Really?
That we're also going to go over to see, because some other auctions are now actually online as well, so you don't have to be there.
Okay. So this is March 17th, 9 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Richard will be there the whole time, giving us his tips and strategies, as well as the research tips, right, Richard?
That's correct.
Okay.
We'll be going over everything.
Okay, so sign up at drea.org and come and join us on Saturday, March 17th in Aventura or North Miami.
Thank you.